ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Ba-da-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-ba-dum. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, 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 bum. Ba-da-da-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-ba-dum. Hi, everyone. Hi, Bob and Deb Dunbar and Esther from Florida and Nina from Maine and Shelley. Love to hear where you're from. Phoenicia in Florida, Grand Rapids, Michigan. That's Pat. Good evening. It's Monday night. And every Monday night we do the same thing. Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern Time. The same thing. We do one thing and one thing only, and that is we talk about homeopathy. And I teach you what I know. I share what I know, and I'd like you to do the same. I'm going to ask actually for you to make some good comments tonight. I need some feedback on as a result of last week's discussion on Arnica. And so tonight, hi, Robin. I love you too. You're so sweet. Hi, Diane from Baltimore. Hello from everyone to everyone from Ontario says, Naley, I think it is. Barbara, good evening. Good evening from Vancouver and Virginia. Excuse me. So great to see all my friends here. And I have to say, I don't know that I say it often enough. Thank you. Thank you for coming on Monday nights. Thank you for being helpful to each other. Thank you for having confidence in me. And even if you don't have confidence in me, thank you for just joining me, because it makes this this forum a little more alive. And I really appreciate when you get this out to folks. Our lives are easier when more people in our world are using homeopathy. And that is so evidenced by, excuse me, by my groups, my academy, our gateway to homeopathy, our classes, because when people get together and help each other, it ups the ante. The tide lifts all boats. And it's a very important thing for us to do, particularly in today's world. So, last week, we talked about protocols for surgery, and I want to talk about it a little bit more, excuse me, especially about Arnica. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little story that happened this week. Last Sunday, I was with my family, and I took a drink of ice water, which I drink, every day, and it caused a pain in my tooth. Number 4, number 5, I couldn't figure out which one it was. It was either 4 or 5. And it was quite painful. And I had to stop what I was doing, hold my mouth, wait a little while, not drink any more cold water. That night when I got home, I thought, what would be really comforting is to have a nice cup of hot tea. So I made myself a cup of hot tea, and the pain came back again. So I said, pain on hot and on cold. Now, I nursed my babies for long periods of time. I mean, not 5 years, but it was somewhat extensive. And although I learned to use Calc Floor, by the way, it's just a nice little added bit of information here tonight to protect my teeth and, of course, my baby's bones, etc. during in not only in utero but while nursing. But I didn't do so for my first baby. I didn't know enough to take Calc Floor. Or maybe I did towards nursing, but not during the pregnancy. I thought, well, I'll bet that's what's happening. I'll bet I fractured one of those teeth. I knew it wasn't an infection. I did think, though, that it was a fracture. And it was pretty painful just to touch. Tap, 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 and it hurt. Every tap hurt. And I could feel it across my face. Not horribly, but I had a sensation across my face, down into my mandible, down my neck, into my clavicle. It wasn't horrible, but I had the sensation. And I thought, well, I've sort of had this feeling coming along, but now it really came to a head. So my dentist is in Ohio, and I hold him in very high regard. I'm in Florida, and I have driven to Ohio for dental appointments with him. I do it about once a year. I don't have a lot of problems with my teeth now, and so I only need to go about once a year, maybe even once every 2 or 3 years sometimes. But when I called the office, they said no, he would not be able to see me for at least a week. And I felt the pain was enough that I couldn't eat. I was okay as long as I didn't eat, as long as I didn't. There was no pressure on it. So I asked some of my student/friends who are local, and they gave me some ideas. And I called one and I made an appointment. And so I was, how do I make this clear? Dead certain it was fractured. And so I went in with that information, got an x-ray, took my homeopathic medicine around it, by the way. X-ray 30 is what I took. And had myself exposed to x-rays, 3 of them. 2 specifics and one a panoramic. And when this dentist, who I'd never met before, but was recommended by a friend, analyzed it, she said, "No, it's not a fracture. No, it's not. It doesn't even look like an infection. It actually appears to be a tendon or a muscle that is occurring as a result of you chomping on your teeth or grinding your teeth at night. Do you grind your teeth?" I said, "I don't really know that I do or not. My husband's never noted it, but I suppose it's possible." And she said, "That's what I think it is." Now, I want to tell you that we never know 100%. I mean, these tests, these x-rays, etc., are not 100% conclusive, but based on what she was telling me, she put a lot of effort and thought into it, and I think she's right that that's what this was. So I jumped to conclusions. Then, a few days ago, I have this little container that I put flowers in, fresh flowers, small container, and sometimes I put a beeswax candle in it. And I put flowers in it about a week earlier, and the flowers were spent. Time to throw them out. Threw them out. Put the container upside down, of course, into my dishwasher, not realizing that a beeswax candle remained in the bottom. And when I opened the dishwasher the next morning, the whole dishwasher was coated with beeswax. The first thing my husband thought was, we're going to have to get a new dishwasher. It's never going to get past this. Oh, I scraped at it and tried to clean out all the beeswax. It was coated. And then the other day, not more than a couple days after that, something went awry in the car. And the first thought that I had was, oh my gosh, the computer's on the fritz in this car. This is just, it's going to be either too expensive, it's going to be so expensive, or et cetera, et cetera. So what's my point here, friends? We jump to conclusions. I exposed myself to x-rays because I assumed the worst. Now, what's really interesting about that particular situation for myself is that I have used Ruta graveolens 200C, because I have noticed that at certain times my tendons do tighten up. Sometimes I use Rustox because indeed my joint does. I do get a joint that becomes painful sometimes. Never did it travel to the actual teeth, but it often occurred around the joint. Why didn't I just do that? Why didn't I just take the Ruta and Rustox a few more times, test it out, and see where it went? Why? Because I made the decision. I decided. I was convinced that it was a fractured tooth. My husband was convinced. He started to look up purchasing a new dishwasher. He was convinced we were going to have to replace the dishwasher. Now, we didn't get that far with the car, but my goodness. 2 to 3 times in 1 week. It only tells us about even I, who have been using homeopathy, teaching it in practice for close to 40 years, 40 years of teaching at least, and using it for my family, close to that. Even I missed the mark and should have been more diligent about another choice. Should have taken Ruta 200 twice a day and maybe a couple doses of Rhus tox for a few days and see if it went away. And if it had gone away, then it would have proven to me that indeed was not a fracture, that it was a tendon or a muscle or a joint. It's so obvious to me when other people do this. When I do it myself, it's not obvious until after I've noted what I've done. And so it's really a cautionary tale. I'm telling you that of course we don't want to ignore the obvious concerns, but that seemed pretty obvious, parenthetically, I'll say. But we also want to calm down, take it easy, and note that what else it could be. I have a friend today who contacted me and said she thought her husband was having a stroke today. He refused to go to the hospital. I urged them to do that. Meanwhile, these are the medicines, and now in the last couple of hours, he's stabilizing. He's much more comfortable. It doesn't seem as though whether it manifested as a stroke or what happened. I don't ever discourage people from going to the doctor or dentist if need be. On the other hand, let's kind of gather our thoughts, use our noggin, and learn how to use these medicines so that we can feel more comfortable about questioning ourselves. And then bounce off of each other, okay? Now, Mary says Symphytum for joint or tendon, like tennis elbow. Yeah, it could be used for that. I have used Symphytum and Calc-Phos for my job, but I recognized what this was, it was so obviously Ruta, graveolens, and an occasional Rhus tox. Okay, so yeah, it is okay. Doctors are good for diagnostics. Yeah, well, you're right. They are good for diagnosis. Well, sometimes they aren't, but sometimes they are. Oftentimes they are, and I like getting a good diagnosis. Unfortunately, sometimes the diagnosis comes with methods that require invasive procedures, such as x-rays. Okay, now I'd like to go back. Let's talk about surgery, shall we? I would like to know, this is why I wanted to carry this on this week. I would like to know, because some people did report last time, whether or not you've had surgery and you've used Arnica in advance, and if you believe it helped you, or if you believe it didn't help you, or if you believe that it caused considerably more bleeding, that was superfluous, unnecessary, or if it kept the anesthetic from acting properly. I want to know whether or not that is something that you've experienced. I want to know the good, the bad, and the ugly, because I wonder if I'm suspicious that there was an article put out there to surgeons that indicated that people should not take Arnica before surgery because it caused this or that. Jalen says, what'd you do about the dishwasher? Well, it's running right now. Not with any dishes in it, but we've ran it twice now, and I cleaned it all out. My husband cleaned it. We bought a new filter and a new wand, and you can still see this little bit of the beeswax in there that we can't get at very readily. But so far it's running. We're going to see how long it lasts. Annie says, Arnica helps big time for surgery. Great. I had a tooth extraction and used the Arnica the night before, the morning of, and after very little discomfort, there was a fair bit of bleeding, but it ended after about 2 days. Okay, thank you, Barb from Toronto. Yes, dental extraction, Arnica and Hypericum before and after surgery. Post-op bleeding was reduced after I needed a 10 of both. Yeah, well, 10, yeah. Had surgery for joint replacement and used the basic surgery protocol. I had almost no bruising. I know someone who took Arnica the night before and morning of the surgery had a hard time coming out of anesthesia. I don't think that's so, Dali. I don't believe that would be the reason. No, I think that having a hard time coming out of anesthesia would be, you would need phosphorus. I do not believe Arnica would cause that. Arnica the night before, the day of just before tooth extraction worked great, says Mia. Arnica and Hypericum worked well for a 2-year-old who needed 7 caps on his teeth and for 14-year-old son post frenoplasty, says Amy. It helped my husband, says Bernice. CW says, suddenly had quite a toothache the night before one wisdom tooth extraction. I remember baby teething from Gateway to Mag Foss alternating with Chamomilla 30 every hour. I was shocked when the pain went away quickly without even the Chamomilla. Phoenicia says, last week I mentioned I had to use Arnica 200 after a frenectomy for one of my redheads, which helped greatly compared to her other procedure before, where she had bled a lot more. Her dentist noticed the difference and asked if we did something differently. Smiley face. Francis says, thank you for honesty and transparency, true integrity. Thank you, Francis. Both my husband and I have used Arnica before tooth extractions, not excessive bleeding. Dentist did mention certain teeth bleed more than others, just as an aside, and that's really true. Certain teeth bleed more than others. Certain people bleed more than others. Certain ages bleed more than others. Certain genders bleed more than others. Okay, Dawn says, only use it before a tooth filling 2 times, and those 2 times I needed a second shot of Novocaine. So now only after, she says. It helped me with my blood extraction, taking it before and after, and I did not get pain nor bruises, says Veronique. I looked it up after a 200 did not work after a dental procedure, and they said it rids the anesthetic faster. Can't remember who. I need to know. That's what I'm hoping I can find out. Who is saying that they need extra anesthesia, and where's the study? I want to know the article, the study that's been done. I can't imagine there's a study, but I imagine there could be an article. Yeah, because I'm going to be skeptical here, friends, on both ways. I want to know whether or not we are wrong. What we've been saying, what I've been teaching is incorrect. Or does it need to be approached with more caution? Or is it certain people? Or is it redheads? Or is it those with darker melanin? This is the kind of information that could be very useful. My guess is that it is a fine protocol. The night before, Arnica 200 the night before, the morning of, and then after as needed. But I want to know, and I also want to know where it's emanating from. How about get infected root canal pulled? What should I use before this procedure and after? Tiffany, this is exactly what we're talking about, just what I just said. I had a tooth extraction and anesthetic had to be added after the first injection because it wasn't totally freezing. I had taken Arnica in the waiting room. Yes, now, is that the reason? That's my concern. That's my question, not concern. That's my question. All right, let's see. I mentioned this last week, says Marie. I was taught that you should not use Arnica before surgery or dental teeth pulling. By accident, right before my tympanic membrane repair, and I had been bleeding from the surgical site post-op. The graft didn't take post-op. The graft didn't take because the bleeding caused a clot. I had to have another surgery 6 months later. I can't be sure if the Arnica caused this. And you see, here's the thing. Let me just tell you my other side of being skeptical. Arnica is the most popular homeopathic medicine on earth. If a competing industry, another pharmaceutical manufacturer, wanted to do real damage to homeopathy, to ruin the underpinnings, to have it's legions of people who believe in using Arnica for surgery question whether or not this is even a good medicine to start with. Might they not go after something like Arnica? Might they not do that? It happened with the tooth. What was it called? It was Highland's teething tablets. And so we have to be smart about how we use our medicines. And is it a real concern? Do we know that? Or is it something else that's going on? My husband, the same. No arnica taken prior, but needs DBL anesthesia injection, so I disagree that arnica affects effectiveness of the anesthesia. I was using a lot of arnica for afterbirth pains. Oh, Phoenicia, it's one of the best for afterbirth pains. I forgot to add it to what I wrote earlier about my newborn clotting quickly. Yes, it's one of the best medicines for afterbirth pains. Are they thinking of arnica in herbal form instead of homeopathic? It's a good question, Danielle. That's why I'd like to get to the bottom of this. I used arnica sort of in the middle of a heart attack, ambulance ride to the hospital where I had 3 stents placed, no excessive bleeding. In fact, the incision used in my wrist was invisible the next day, says Marty. LOL. Well, that's what I used for my father's cardiac arrest. I had used both arnica and I used aconitum, and I used the same for my mother's strokes. And I have to tell you, they were confused at the hospital about my father's. What the heck? It looked like it was a cardiac arrest. That's what was being reported on the way in the ambulance. But I don't know. It wasn't a cardiac arrest, and he had previous ones. I take hamamelis before surgery, says Jen. Well, hamamelis is beautiful, and it can be used in conjunction with arnica. I had a friend who was not taking any homeopathic remedies, and she had so much pain from the tooth extraction after multiple shots of Novocaine. It was to the point that she had to return 2 weeks later. She needs much more Novocaine than what the dentist normally administers. My point is amount needed varies greatly without homeopathic remedies. Very well put, says, that was from Office at West Press. Yes, Arnica 3 immediately after to prevent blood clots. Thank you, Jen. You're right. Donna, don't plastic surgeons use arnica? Yes, they do. Yes, they do. But they're not doing it. They're not using the method that I'm describing, which is 200 potency the night before, the morning of, and then after and then after surgery as well, as needed. After surgery, you can take it a number of times. Yes, very good. How about menstrual cramps for a young teen? Yep, arnica can be great for menstrual cramps. Yes. So can Mag Phos. We've got a lot of remedies for menstrual cramps that could be really useful. Arnica is the remedy to dissolve blood clots. Yes, when the blood clots are a problem. When we need the clotting, then it doesn't. That's the beauty of homeopathy. It's not manipulative, my friends. It corrects. If the blood is viscous, it thins it. If the blood is too thin, it makes it more viscous. My trauma surgeon was familiar with arnica. Yeah, and it's interesting because there's a hospital in Buffalo, New York, that I had heard a number of times. It was in the emergency room. The doctors were giving Arnica montana on a regular basis. Now, we're not talking about the 1930s. We're talking about recently. Recently, I'm going to say maybe 25 years ago. Everything's relative, isn't it? Arnica just worked too well. I never needed extra Novocaine except those 2 times, and I've had many fillings. So you wonder, is it that when a dentist or a surgeon has a problem, or the anesthesiologist has a problem, they ask, are you taking arnica? And then they blame it on that. And that's happened so many times, not just with homeopathy, but also I've heard stories about folks who start drinking raw milk or start giving their children raw milk. And then they, for one reason or another, the child gets sick or someone in the family gets sick and they go into the hospital, and the family's not that familiar with raw milk. They haven't done their research. They've not read about it enough so that they can feel confident about it. And so they ask, is there anything unusual that this child's been drinking? And the parent thinks, well, yeah, we just started drinking this raw milk business. And then they say raw milk. They're like, that's it. That's it. That's the cause. It's raw milk. There's no testing, mind you. There's no indication. It's just, let's go after anything that is outside of the ordinary. Yeah, the doctors don't need to know everything, says Robin. Yeah. Mary says, would it be good to take it before getting fillings? Would I use it before a filling? No, I don't think of doing that. If I were to get a filling, I would use Ledum 200 after the filling, and Hypericum if there was residual pain. But a lot of times, fillings aren't even painful. Listen, my friends, I'm old enough to remember that when I used to get a cavity as a child, you didn't get Novocaine. You never got an injection. It's so funny. They just drilled. And you put up with the pain. Now, I didn't have bad teeth, and maybe those children who had really a real problem, maybe there was surgery or something that was more involved, and maybe there was an accident or trauma, and they needed to have, but none of us got Novocaine. That just wasn't part of the procedures. Didn't they blame issues on hypericum and St. John's wort? Yes, they used to say that you can't. Yeah, St. John's wort was really very unhealthy, they said, for a long time. That was in the news for a long time. My oral surgeon offered me Arnica following a root canal tooth extraction. Also offered a homeopathic oral rinse to use as a follow-up. Yeah, Linda, sounds like you've got a good one there. I used Arnica and aconite with stroke symptoms of my husband. Went to the ED. No, wait a minute, flipped up. Something are coming in now. No evidence of stroke in hospital test and blood. And, oh boy, I can't read it. It's moving along. Blood pressure dropped without any allopathic intervention. Yes, Kim. Yeah. Can I get a carbocaine shot for pain to get the tooth pulled and take Arnica and hypericum? Homeopathy does not interfere with conventional drugs. Does not interfere. How many remedies can we take? At 78, I have several health challenges, nothing serious, but need attention. Joint, digestion, cataract. This is the way to look at this, Nancy. You could take a couple of 2, maybe 3 homeopathic medicines, get those resolved, and then move on. Start with the most concerning condition. What is the hierarchy? What's the condition that's the most problematic? If you're talking about joints and I would go with digestion, because once the digestion is cleared, a lot of times the joints clear. It doesn't usually go the other way around. Cataracts, digestion, and joints can also be, and I'm not going to try to convince people to do this, but can often be a glucose problem, meaning cut out the bread, cut out the cereal, cut out the bagels and the cookies and the pizzas and the noodles and the pasta, cut it all out and eat meat and eggs and butter and cheese. And doesn't mean you have to do it necessarily forever, but do it for a while and see how you feel with the digestion and the joints and the cataracts. Cataracts are often as a result of high blood sugar. All right, where are we now? Oh my gosh, how could it be 8:27 already? Yeah, no Novocaine, says Jody, but there were only slow motion drills. That's really true. My husband is on the transplant list for kidney. Yes, he's on the protocol, and we are working with the Banerjee Clinic. Great. Hospital wants to know all the remedies he is on. Do I share all of them? That's your take, Jill. That's something you got to feel comfortable about. The homeopathic medicines will not interfere with drugs. Just know that. They will not interfere. That's a decision you have to make. You have to look at it like a game of chess. You put your queen out into the middle of the board, and now you're going to wait and see what happens. What's going to happen? Is that bishop going to come around and wipe that queen out? Maybe even a pawn can do it. It depends on who you're working with, who you're dealing with, who's the doctor that you're working with. Do you feel comfortable with that? Does that doctor know what you use? You got to make a decision. And if you're using the Banerjees, they're medical doctors. You could say, my medical doctor tells me this is what I should be doing. Whoever's helping you there is your medical doctor. Okay. I'm doing mostly meat and almost no sugar, and it makes a difference. No kidding, Robin. Isn't it so? Isn't it so? My orthodontist pulled a tooth with nothing but a set of pliers when I was a teen. Surprise, no drugs, no sympathy. It was quick, Mary. So great. I know other people have done that too. Oh my God. Don't tell them that I tell them that I take Arnica Montana 3X before they replace my Pack Esker battery. It's a decision you've got to be comfortable with. How close are you to your doctor? How comfortable are you with your doctor? How much is your doctor in your court? Yeah, I know what you meant. Pacemaker. It says pack Esker battery. I knew you meant pacemaker. But it's really kind of cute that it said pack Esker. All righty. Let's see what else we've got. How many remedies can we take? Really, that was Nancy's question. I think I answered that. Let's see. Arnica just works so well. I never need extra Novocaine except those 2 times, and I've had many fillings. Great. So there you go. Dawn says, hi, Dawn. She uses Arnica for fillings. Arnica is the one remedy that I can easily recommend to new people. Yes. It's the gateway. It's the Trojan horse. Arnica is the remedy to dissolve blood. Yes, we've read that already. How about for menstrual cramps? Answered that, replying to Deborah. Okay, you're helping each other. Okay. Need something for anxiety to take for infected root canal. Well, let me just tell you, before I went into that dentist, I took gelsemium, and normally I would take gelsemium 30 for anxiety for a forthcoming event. I hate going to the dentist. So, but I only had a 200. I had a 200 kit with me, so that's what I used. I took the 200 and it worked like a charm. I took it on the way there, driving on the way there. Why tell them, says Dawn. They won't understand. Yeah, so really what you're asking these professionals to do is to kind of get up to snuff and understanding what homeopathy is. They have no idea what it is. If they see the word nux vomica and they look it up, they're going to say, oh my gosh, that's poison nut. You're taking poisons? How about arsenicum album or belladonna or aconitum? These are poisons. You can't take poisons. So you're expecting them to learn to catch up to you where you are now in your understanding in just about an hour or so. So replying to Tiffany, gelsemium 6 for anticipation. Yeah, gelsemium 6. Let me just say this, Paula. I like gelsemium 6 for anticipatory anxiety when it is a chronic. It's a child who doesn't want to go to school. They're very nervous. It's someone who's got events every day at the office and they have to take gelsemium. Then I would use it in a 6 every day until it's resolved. And often it can be resolved in very short order. But for me, I don't have anticipatory anxiety until I was on my way to the dentist. And then I would have taken a 30, took the 200, and worked beautifully. How many minutes before procedure? Oh, could be done in about an hour. So, hi everyone. Question: how do you view the vital force in homeopathy? Oh well, that's a whole big question. Geraldine, it's I'm going to say that I know that dear Hahnemann, talked about it. There he is. But I don't spend time talking about that because it's not something that I even use, that I even consider. I use the name of the condition, the symptoms, and I use protocols with the name of the remedy, the potency, and the frequency. If it doesn't act or we need to move on, then I start repertorizing, and I'm not looking at that. That is a kind of a philosophical way of looking at it. I think of homeopathy as much more left-brained. Not that it's wrong, it's just not. It's not in my purview. Can you go over the strength to start with? Okay. I don't know what that means. No wonder you hate going to the dentist after getting fillings with slow drills. Jesus, Deborah. Okay, my friends, I'm going to say good evening. And for those of you who are mighty members, I'll see you on the other side. We've got a nice group meeting tonight with some, or is it Mighty members I'm meeting? Mighty's Plus. Mighty's, yeah, Mighty's and then Mighty's Plus. Okay, friends, have a great week. Great conversing with you. Oh, can't hear me so well since the mic moved. Back to it again. Good night, all. Have a great week.